We're live. Hello,
We're
hello, hello.
live. Well, here we are. We did it
Okay,
once again. We accomplished the magic of going live.
we did. It is magical, guys. If you're just tuning in, or if you're watching the replay, and it's 10 years from now, or any time in between, drop a comment below on this video. Give us any questions or thoughts that you have. Huge announcement that came out this morning that Christian and I are super excited to get into more detail and talk to everybody about. But it's kind of, you probably heard the saying, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time. I don't even know where to start. What part of the
Yeah.
elephant do we even tackle first here?
So the way I think the best place to start is just in case anybody missed the announcement somehow this morning, because it was loud, it was everywhere. I think a bunch of people saw it, but just in case you did miss the announcement, I'd say we touch on what has happened and kind of explain for anybody that might not be aware. Mr. Shelton, what is happening? What has happened that people should know about today?
Christian's companies, and it's technically plural. We didn't include this in the written article or anything that we've advertised, but he has multiple companies. He technically has 3 companies. I had 2 companies, and like Cheaper by the Dozen, we have come together and formed one family of companies, and couldn't be more excited about this opportunity, you guys, for myself personally, for my team, for getting to work with Christian, who's obviously a really good friend of mine. As you know, we've been streaming now for over 3 years. If you can believe it,
Yeah.
we're coming up on, I guess, starting year 4 of us streaming together. So
Yeah.
I couldn't be more excited about this collaboration of companies, of employees, of strategies. There's so much that we're going to be able to do together that we couldn't do before. So that's what's happened is we have merged our companies together to form essentially one entity. And su casa es mi casa. We are all one big family. So super excited. So that being said, of what happened, what's the first piece of this that you feel like needs to be illuminated? I think
Yeah.
you know what I think would be actually a really good place to start. Kitschy, I don't know if you're watching. I saw your question earlier. I'm gonna actually pull it up here on my phone. Um, it was kind of more of like a logistical question of how this merger looks on paper. I'll just read it. Can you clarify about the merger? Does this mean that you two joined and formed a new entity? How does the new ownership look like, and what is the new management structure?
Well, I'm in charge. No, I'm just kidding.
Guys, I'm in charge. I'm senior partner, 51%.
um, yeah, I mean, I think that is a great question. So to kind of answer it, for Kitschy, and I'll kind of give my thoughts, and Glenn, if I miss anything,
Yeah,
please feel free to fill in the gaps. But
absolutely.
um, you know, really kind of what we have kind of done is we've continued to use the brand Christian Brindle Insurance Services. It's a well-known brand, well-known company name, um, in many respects. What we've done though is we've kind of introduced a DBA, a doing business as, um, extension of CBIS, and so we feel like it's gonna allow us to be able to, be kind of recognized in a couple of different ways, kind of, as we're doing business nationally. Sometimes the biggest challenge with CBIS is, there's, I tell the story all the time. I actually told it today, training, some new employees about, um, last year, an agent called in the office, saw our billboard, and he assumed it was a guy working in his basement because of how the company was named. He was calling to try to like pitch something. I don't even remember what it was, but like I remember that. I'm like, I'm like, dude, we're way bigger than you, bro. Like, you have no idea, And so I feel like it allows us to be able to present ourselves where it makes sense in certain opportunities as kind of a larger entity. So that there's that. We've kind of combined, as Glenn said earlier, all of the businesses under one umbrella. So we're all the businesses are tied together. Glenn and I are equal partners. We're equal 50-50 partners on the entire conglomerate of businesses, but we're not really creating a new business. It's more of just a DBA of CBIS for now.
I think that was very succinct. It was very, I think, clear what you were trying to say there. I think the only additional clarification I would maybe offer is, technically I'm co-principal at CBIS.
Yes.
And Lead Heroes and Hire Heroes are owned 100% by CBIS.
Yes.
So as far as like the legal structure goes and how we put this together on paper, just to really put it out there, if anyone was wondering how this actually all worked, and that alone, like the structure of this, we spent a lot of time,
insane amounts of time,
discuss. We had like, I had initially talked about a certain kind of a draft of how I thought it should look, and then we talked to a CPA, and then I kind of went back to what I had thought, and I'm like, this is way overly complicated. Kind of threw that draft away, and then we put together what we ended up doing.
Yeah. I mean, and really, like, it does work that way with the other companies as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the different companies, I mean, it's not something I've really advertised or broadcast too much, but we had to kind of establish last year the Summit as its own company. So the Seven Figure Medicare Summit LLC, and then we established our training and consulting brands as its own company as well. So Seven Figure Medicare Training LLC. So that those two companies, along with Glenn's companies and Lead Heroes and Hire Heroes, we kind of found it the easiest to make CBIS the parent company, the owner of all of these businesses, if you will, and have these businesses be subsidiaries, and then Glenn and I be co-principals, of the top company, if you will. And so, yeah, I mean, I think through so much consultation with and kind of researching and studying and talking about different possibilities, I think we kind of found that it was the easiest way to do things.
Yeah, it's easy to get derailed into legal complications over nothing that needs to happen. Again, simplicity was super important to me on how we put this together. But I mean, so far, I think it's worked really well. I think we have something that's very interchangeable as far as how these pieces are fitting together. We're still figuring out a lot of this. We're both pretty big companies, and now we're one really big company. So there's a lot of there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of different software technology that we're using, a lot of different employees that are sharing roles that we're kind of slowly trying to untangle and figure out. Okay, this person should be doing this person should be doing that. So it's been a lot of work, but I think it's been really great so far what we've already been able to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree. I think a great question for us to answer, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people saw the announcement today in some form or fashion. It's kind of been everywhere, and they might have asked themselves, "How does this affect me?" Right? What? How does this affect me? How does it help my business? Right? How does it increase potential opportunities for me, the little guy? I'm little Billy, running my business,
Hi, Billy.
And we're gonna look at little Billy and tell him, how does this affect him? What would your answer be to that, Glenn?
It feels like we're at like a town hall. It's like it's like a presidential town hall debate. It's like, Billy, let me tell you how this is going to affect you and your company.
I do care about your vote, Billy.
Yeah, it's super important to me. So I think there's a lot of different ways, and the more that we get an opportunity to work together, I feel like we kind of uncover more opportunities for, not just us here internally, but also agents externally, moving forward. So I think one of the biggest things when it comes to the Lead Hero side of the business and the marketing and lead generation side of the business, we've always had really strong client relationships like Christian, agencies that we do a lot of business with where we get really great feedback, real-time feedback, stats on, contact rate, close rate, follow-up percentages, 90-day look back on a lead order or a marketing campaign and how the results shook out. Well, we're going to be able to go from processing this external sales data to now, I'm like a bad scientist in a lab here. I'm going to have all of the pieces from, start to finish right here in front of me. So when we roll something out to you guys, the public, it should be very much so a completely finished system, no guessing. And again, like I said, historically, I feel like we've always done a great job at Lead Heroes with getting this data externally and being able to apply it to our processes and our systems and what we're doing. But now with this real-time feedback coming from within CBIS and the entire agency, I think it's just going to make it that much better. Very, very polished, finished marketing. And this was a whole nother thing too. I didn't necessarily want to get too far down this rabbit hole on this stream, unless maybe you wanted to, but the FCC, dun dun dun.
I think it's a great topic to at least brush on.
So for those who maybe a little bit, maybe you don't know anything, maybe you're one of the people out there freaking out about what the FCC is doing, but there's a lot of uncertainty with rules and regulation. We've seen it from CMS for the past, several years now, where they're changing the rules almost annually. Sometimes small changes, sometimes big changes. And the FCC decides to step in and kind of offer their own rule changes, which are going to affect all of us and not just insurance agents. This is a national marketing lead generation rule change that's going to affect everybody. Now, I will say too on this stream, guys, as much as I'm in the know, as much as I've talked to attorneys, agency owners, data companies, other lead companies, I mean, you name it, I've tried to field opinions and get clarity on how this is all going to play out, what's it going to look like, how's the enforcement going to, how is that going to go into effect? And there's still a lot of mucky water. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of people who are saying that certain things are going to go one way when we really don't know yet. Just like with CMS, you guys, once they vote on a rule and it gets passed, there's this phase of implementation where we don't know how certain things are going to be defined. We don't know if, for example, I'll just throw one specific example out there that I've heard a lot of talk about. In an FMO model, like CBIS as an example, if Lead Heroes does marketing and the opt-in says CBIS, so they're opting in for a Medicare quote from CBIS, does that have to be a W-2 agent that's sitting in Christian's office? Or could that be any of the contracted downline agents? Because technically there is a business relationship with CBIS there. From what I've heard, the chattering on this is that the FMO model will ultimately kind of be the loophole here, where you'll be able to market for your downline agents. Whereas externally, that might be more difficult. Again, we don't have all the facts yet. This rule just got passed a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think for all the talk about the CMS proposed rule, and don't get me wrong, it deserves all the attention it's been getting, there hasn't been nearly as much conversation about this FCC rule, which in my opinion, it's a totally different impact on insurance agents and agencies. But I mean, you could make the argument that it's just as, if not more,
Could be bigger
of a disruption. Yeah.
Could be
Yeah,
bigger.
it could be bigger. It could be bigger. And I think us working together, our companies working together, gives us the ability to combat and adjust and be able to provide the best compliant product no matter what it is to all agents that work with the entity, no matter in what form or fashion.
Yeah, and I may have glossed over the specifics of the rule change too, so I'll just kind of put this out there for those who might not know. The FCC wants one-to-one opt-in consent. So, right now the way the rules work is when a publisher gets an opt-in from anybody, Mrs. Jones goes online to medicarequotes.com and she submits her information. That opt-in right now can be sold to anybody like me at Lead Heroes, sell it to Christian, sell it to 100 different entities. And that opt-in is 100% legitimate for everybody to use.
Yeah.
And you can call the TCPA rules and regulations. You have 90 days to contact that person. And after 90 days, you would have to scrub it against the do not call list at that point. But that opt-in is 100% legitimate to use. So yes, the FCC won't let me be me. 100%. Eminem was right from day one. But so this one-to-one opt-in consent means that it has to have the name of the company who's actually going to be interacting with you on the other end. That's where that's like the biggest change. There's other stuff in this. Again, it's a relatively long document. I'm trying to remember the total page count top of my head. I want to say 80 pages. And you can find it I'll try to get the link to and I'll drop it in the comments, you guys, so you can look at it after we're done streaming. But yeah, that's the main rule that's really being looked at hard, I think, by everyone is how does this one-to-one consent play out? I'll just throw this out there too, because again, from the Lead Hero side of the business, you guys, another possibility that I've heard floated is that if Lead Heroes collects that opt-in consent and then gets a second opt-in consent that asked if they can be transferred to a separate party, I have been told that will be legitimate according to these new FCC rules. And if that's the case, that's not really going to change a whole lot if that's true. Again, I think time will tell how these rules will play out, how they'll be enforced. But I think that's kind of did I miss anything on that?
Talk about when these rules take effect.
Yes, that is a great point here too. 2024, it is the same sailing. The water's calm. Nothing changes this year. So
we like calm water. We like
calm water. We like when we know there's no changes. So initially they wanted a 6-month implementation when they first passed it. Now they're saying 12 months. And again, I'm also hearing that there's a lot of lobbying and fighting and appealing that's going to be happening behind the scenes, where maybe the rule as it's published right now could change by the time we get to 2025. I don't foresee that happening. I don't think we're going to see a huge deviation from what already got passed as law, but I think we will see changes for sure. And I think from here, what I'd really like to parlay this into is talking about the CMS changes. There was actually a comment, I think, on the announcement thread today where someone asked, is there an update to the CMS changes?
That I have been told some things from some very reliable sources. I cringe at the thought of saying them over our airwaves.
Only what you're comfortable.
I don't want to get in trouble.
You're comfortable saying.
So in terms of like what's going to happen, the short answer is no. I don't think there's been any decision made. There hasn't been any final rule that has come out. So, I mean, until there's a final rule, everything else is really hearsay, right? What I have been told is there have been some pretty extensive pushback behind the scenes from NABIP, which NABIP has publicly stated that, they've kind of put it out there that they've met with CMS, been in communication with CMS throughout this process. So that's not news necessarily. That's public information. But carriers behind the scenes that value what the FMO brings to the table. The largest broker distribution channels in the industry kind of parlaying their resources and working together. I won't say names, but you guys probably can figure out who I'm talking about. So from my understanding, like I think I had seen some feedback from agents being like, what is being done about this? What are we going to do about this? We need to do a campaign. We need to do a TV commercial with like a sad dog in it. It's like, in the eyes of the angels, like, which won't do any good in my opinion, guys.
I'm all about that. I didn't hear anything about this sad dog commercial. Let's get this rolling.
All right, I will be the producer of it, but I think that
for $1 a day,
you can help a Medicare agent stay in business.
You can sponsor a Medicare agent.
But essentially, what we're kind of dealing with there is, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes that I think the everyday agent hasn't been necessarily privy to. And because they haven't been necessarily privy to it, their interpretation is the only thing that's been done is essentially a petition. And I think that's the smallest thing that's been done.
Well, here's the other interesting take on this that I've seen from people in Seven Figure, our Facebook group, and other Facebook groups. There's some people out there who are like they want to see the FMO structure burned down, and that's always interesting to me too, because I don't think they understand the value, or maybe their FMO isn't providing any value to them, and so maybe that's why they want to burn it down. But I think if you really take a step back, whether you own an FMO or you're an independent agent or anywhere in between, I think if you step back and you look at the really big picture here, I think you would understand that destroying the FMO model is going to be a horrible thing for the average agent, for the Medicare beneficiaries, for really the entire industry. I think it really just supports the really big call center, really big LOA call centers. I think are the ones that probably win the most if something like this were to go through. So hopefully, again, fingers crossed, hopefully that this doesn't pass the way that it's really written to pass right now. We haven't gotten the final rule. What do you think? April? May?
The thing is, I mean, nobody knows exactly. It could be in a few weeks. It could be a month. It could be a few months. We could not get any final rule at all.
They stopped voting. They never vote again. No final.
At least on this particular proposal, we might not get a final rule. There's at this point, there's a number of things that could happen, and I think I mean, people hate this answer, but it's the right one. It's a hurry up and wait situation, in terms of knowing exactly what's going to go on. I mean, you and I have done hours, I would say, plural, of streaming talking about this.
Yeah.
And I think that, I'm definitely encouraged by everything that I have heard that's being done. It makes me feel much better about it. And it makes me feel like the most likely scenario is that we'll have probably something pass, but it's almost like it's just a change in what we end up seeing. It's almost like there's a cap put on what overrides could be for top level, whereas now it can kind of vary by carrier. Maybe there's some kind of control put into marketing money and that kind of thing. All of that I'm fine with it, and I think most agents wouldn't really notice much of a difference if that happened. It still allows the FMO to stay in business. It still allows the FMO to operate, and it just involves a little bit of adjustments. But yeah. So that's my guess. if I had to really put an educated guess based on everything I've been told, everything I know. That's what I think is going to happen, but we'll have to wait and see.
So again, to kind of bring this back to the merger conversation and why Christian and I decided to really put all of our pieces on the board and work together. There is a lot of uncertainty when it comes to rules and regulation changes. And I think Christian kind of touched on this earlier before we got too far down the road on what these rule changes could look like. The benefit of working together is being able to be more agile when it comes to these rule changes and being able to, again, continue to support agents, whether it's internally contracted agents at CBIS or externally non-contracted agents. All of you guys here in our communities, whether you're in the Facebook group, maybe you're watching this on YouTube, maybe, you find this video several months from now, you're just as important to us as someone who is contracted internally. I know historically, a lot of businesses like FMOs, like what Christian and I have essentially put together, a lot of times they get distracted by focusing on that internal growth. Christian and I have already been very clear about our intentions with this, that we don't want to alienate anybody. We don't want to alienate any existing Lead Heroes clients, Hire Heroes clients. Maybe you're with the six-figure university, or you want to come to the summit. There is no goal here where we just say, hey, if you want Lead Heroes leads, you have to contract with us. Like, that's not something that would happen. So I did want to mention that, because that was a concern I had right away when Christian and I were talking about doing this. Is, I love the agents that we get to work with at Lead Heroes. I have no contracts tied to any of them, and I want to be able to keep that going. I don't want a model where we have to get everyone's contracts in-house. Obviously, I would love to have them. Send them on over to Christian. If you're looking for any insurance carriers contracts, by all means, send them to Christian. He can hook you up. But you absolutely do not have to contract to work with us in any capacity.
Yes. I think that's very well put. I think the way I would look at it is like, regardless of your situation, I believe there is a way that we can work with you in
100%.
some way, shape, or form. And that has been the CBIS model all along. You know what I mean? Like, of course, we have our partner agents internally, our contracted agents that work with us. And we have such great relationships with them, and we value them, and they're wonderful partners with the business. But we also have people that have paid consulting with us, and that's our relationship with them. Where they bring me in and have me consult with them and try to find ways to improve their business. We have lots of six-figure Medicare University members that don't have any contracts with us, but they're part of the training. They're part of the system, and they're treated like everybody else is. And then, I think kind of going back to Lead Heroes, like if you need leads, if you're needing help with staffing, Lead Heroes and Hire Heroes can solve those problems for you, and there's no strings attached. There's no expectation of anything more than that, unless that's what you want it to be. So I think no matter who you are, no matter what your situation is, we feel like, and Glenn, I'll kind of give you a second to add to this if you'd like, but I believe we feel like, we are uniquely positioned to be able to help an agent grow their business in a multitude of ways. And I don't think there's another entity in the industry that's equipped to do that like we are.
So, let's take it a step further, right? Let's say CMS kills the FMO model, okay? I don't think it will happen that way. Like Christian said, I think there's going to be kind of a middle ground. But let's just hypothetically say, FMOs are essentially dead by 2025. Well, we're in a position where we can support agents without having their contracts. We have so much bandwidth that's already dedicated to agents that aren't contracted with us. Call centers, agencies, independent agents. So that in and of itself makes me feel great about any potential CMS rule changes. we're not we're not worried about it, honestly. And again, that's kind of always been my model too. Is like if you feel like you're getting so much value that you're trying to figure out how else can I work with Christian, how else can I work with Glenn, like I totally believe you'll come find us. I'm not going to be, contract hawking. I'm not going to be just like spam DMing. I'm not going to be like, hey, you got a contract with us. Here's the contracting link. Like it would never work that way. So I know Christian. That's how Christian operates. That's not how I've operated.
There was a good question in the comments. I know there were some questions we need to get to, and we have plenty of time, but there was one I wanted to get to I didn't want to forget that was on the stream. Who should downline agents report to, or has this not been discussed? Nothing changes in that regard, right? So like continue to report to my team internally at CBS. Well, it's our team. It's our team internally. It's our team. but your regular contacts aren't changing. Whether it be Emma, whether it be myself. We hired somebody who actually started today who's joining the agent relations team, who's I believe she's going to be fantastic. She's, really smart, very, very well articulated. So that part of it, that experience that you're going to notice in terms of who you deal with, everything like that won't change. But it doesn't mean you can't reach out to Glenn and, have a conversation with him and be like, hey, I could use some advice on this because he'd be happy to help you as well because we're all big one happy family now.
Yeah, I think, and that's, again, those are the situations that I'm excited about where, historically, because my time is so valuable, I obviously have to kind of pick how I get to choose it every day. So, an independent agent that is only buying 10 leads at a time who I can't devote as much time as I want to. But, again, if this is an agent that's working with CBIS, maybe I'm able to devote more time. So, that type of value exchange, I'm super excited about. We've hired, do you want to talk about some of the ground we've already covered coming up from January 1 to now?
Yeah.
2 weeks into the year. We brought in a consultant to work with us on paid advertising. So we're planning on having really paid ads for all 5 different businesses that we're running. And again, this should be super beneficial for everybody, not just us, because again, based on the FCC rules, if things go in that direction, you're really going to either need to be working with someone who's extremely talented, or you're going to have to be that extremely talented person when it comes to collecting these one-to-one opt-in consents. So, we're already hedging our bets on that. So we've got a very talented consultant that we're bringing in. Christian in the team in Utah. We just brought in 2 brand new hires that started today.
Yep.
Someone to help with agent relations, like he was talking about, and another a marketer to kind of help, kind of a blend, I think, of really both sides of the business, both what Christian's doing and I'm doing. I think we've hired almost 40 additional callers at the Lead Heroes call center, just anticipating growth coming into Q1 of this year. What else? What else am I? That's, and again, this has nothing to do with the amount of time Christian and I have spent on the legal side, the legal structure and bank accounts and all the stuff that sounds so simple that is not always so simple.
I think, you hit it right on the head. I think there's other things we're doing as well, like at the CBIS offices here in Utah. I'll give you guys just it seems like we're changing the entire business, but, for the better. We're changing our internet. We're changing our emails. We changed the company bank accounts. We moved all the finances to new bank accounts. We're moving to a new payroll system. We're aggressively looking to improve in tons of areas in the business. I don't know if I've ever worked harder in a 2-week span than I've worked this year.
Especially in January too. It's like normally the first couple weeks of January, you're like kind of like kicking off the dust, you're like coming back from Christmas, but No, we've been in a dead sprint, I feel like, from January 1 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think um, the farther we go and the more integrated um, the Lead Heroes team and my team get with each other, and I think in so many different respects, it's just going to be such a well-oiled machine, and I think it's going to be a better experience for everyone we do business with, whether it be our clients internally, whether it be um, our agents, whether it
Medicare
be
beneficiaries.
Medicare beneficiaries. I think there's so much good that's going to come out of this, and I think that we're looking at it again, like I said, from the perspective of we really want to find creative ways to help everybody grow their business, even if they're not contracting with us. Again, as Glenn said, we'd love for agents to contract with us, if that's something you want to do. And I think that's a great option for a lot of people. But there's so many ways you can work with us, even if it's just as simple as getting a ticket to the summit and coming out and learning at the
100%.
event,
Yeah.
we have created a model here where we can help solve a problem for you in almost any way that you can think of.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so much behind the scenes that we already have kind of outlined or have built a structure around that is going to be brand new.
Yeah.
So, we have all these existing pieces that we're trying to intertwine and figure out how they connect. But then there's also a lot of new things, some stuff on the technology side that we've already kind of discussed. A lot of technology, again, is already being used internally by Christian's team, by my team. And we're talking about how we can, again, better support the community.
Mm-hmm.
And without, again, it's not about, we're not trying to take every agent's last dollar here. We're more so on the sad puppy side. We want to sponsor you guys. That's really how we view it. Like we want to better the community, and provide the tools to allow you guys to do your job in the best way possible. I mean, I think that's, in simplest terms, the best way I can really describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that it's, I said it a couple times, but now I just want to reiterate it for everybody that's watching. The value proposition that we have in any way that we could possibly partner with an agent is very unique. It can be as much or as little or specific on a certain area that it needs to be, but at the end of the day, we have the infrastructure. Glenn, how many staff currently does Lead Heroes have?
We were going through our org chart the other day. We have a 3-page org chart. Christian sent over his org chart, and I'm like, okay, here you go. I was like,
Glenn was like, that's cute. Here you go. Is that it?
It's somewhere around 230 people that we have on payroll at Lead Heroes and Hire Heroes right now, between the callers, the virtual assistants, the QA team, the customer service team, the kind of mid-level management team, our executive management team. It's about 230 plus or minus. So a lot of people to be able to, again, work with you guys in many, many different ways. I think the traditional model, so we talked a lot about how we want to do things. Let's talk about what the traditional model normally looks like. I'll tell you what I came into the business, the model I came into. The company that I got licensed to work with, 10 years ago, they wouldn't sell me a lead unless I was contracted with them. There was zero transparency about where those leads were coming from. It was really just, here you go. Yep. The contract levels, zero transparency. If anything, I was being misled on how my commissions work. It's a night like that. And again, I think that's what I'm most excited about. Like, I got into this business and then I grew a company in this industry. And my goal from day one of really investing my time, money, and energy into the insurance space is I want to be the difference that I wanted to see. I want to create the company that I wish I had signed up for 10 years ago that didn't exist. And I would
Yeah.
argue in many ways still doesn't really exist. And I would love to offer that opportunity to everybody, for anybody who wants to participate. And I think we're on track to do exactly that. So I think, again, that's why I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think another thing that I think is super relevant to mention is like our strengths complement each other so well. You know what I mean? Like our strengths work very well together, and I think it helps us provide a better product in every way, whether it's training, whether it's leads, whether it's the event, whether it's servicing in-house agents, anything like that. So I think that's another thing as well is, our our talents can be kind of pooled together to kind of put
100%.
together the best kind of experience for anybody that is doing business with the company. And that's one thing that I've been extremely excited about is, it's one of those things where sometimes, you're really good at something, but you wish you were really good at like three other things, like I wish I had somebody here that was really good at this. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like bringing in the ultimate person that's has that compatibility, right, to kind of help with kind of pass strengths along. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is like I think Glenn is such a savvy marketing mind, business building mind, delegation expert. Like there's so many things he's so good at that can help not only my team internally, which helps us be better for everybody we're working with, but it's information that can help our agents, people we partner with, that kind of thing. And I think I think that's a thing that I didn't want to get lost in this, is like us working together helps everybody in that way as well.
I think that's a great point. If you can't tell, I'm blushing under my beard, you guys, after the compliments I got from my business partner here. But I guess I feel like I have to reciprocate now. But Christian is so much more knowledgeable in all things Medicare than I am, especially on the product side. That's probably one of my weakest points, I'd say, just because I'm so focused on the front end of the sales process. Getting someone's attention and converting that to a sales conversation. That's where I spend, almost all my time and focus at Lead Heroes on the marketing side. So, on the back end, when it comes to completing the sale, what carrier to use, what's the newest product. I mean, it seems like every 6 months, there's a shakeup at the carrier level with maybe different products. Obviously on the telephonic sales side, I am a call center. I work with call centers. So I have a lot of experience on the call center side. Christian has a brick and mortar office. He gets foot traffic. He has, a brand that's present and local. Again, almost the antithesis, the opposite of a call center. Not that he doesn't have telephonic sales experience. He does have that. But again, that's kind of a compliment that I feel like we have. My sales background coming into the industry, you guys, I've mentioned, the entity that I first contracted with over 10 years ago, which doesn't even exist anymore. It was almost exclusively life insurance. They didn't believe in Medicare. They offered it, but they told everyone, don't do it. Don't do it. There's no money in it. Which, at the time, the commissions were a lot smaller. So maybe there was some truth to it, but I was definitely being, again, kind of misled about how everything works. So, I spent years exclusively writing life insurance, something that, again, Christian's almost exclusive focus has been on health like the entire time. So, if you have a life health license, which most of us do, right? There's two sides to the coin. And one of the goals we have, again, just to be super clear with you guys, like we want to help you utilize both sides of the coin. We want to do a lot more on the life side, whether it's, specifically senior life insurance, or maybe we start to get a little more outside of that. That's something that personally, I want to help the company get more involved and grow the life side of the business. So we did a poll in the group about final expense, and it was broken into about thirds. This was like several months ago. And this was all about content at the time. A third of you were dying to learn about final expense. You know it, or maybe you just want to know it, or you want to know it better. Then there's a third of you that were like, we're leaving the group if you talk about final expense. Just hated final expense. And then there was like a third of you that I feel like just were kind of indifferent but didn't really want it. So, we'll figure out how that content and helping the agents who want to learn more about the life side, we'll figure that out as we go. But just
Yeah.
something, again, that Christian and I, we kind of complement our strengths and weaknesses.
One thing I wanted to mention that just popped into my mind is like, I wanted to kind of revisit something real quickly that you mentioned earlier about like, how using internal data helps provide a better product, right? For Lead
Yes.
Heroes and for everything
Yep.
else. CBIS, I feel like the success on the agent side from CBIS has always been 100% based on using our internal agency as the model, right? So like anytime we teach on something, anytime we train on anything
Right.
to our agents, we've already done it internally first. And we know it works. We've tested it,
Yep.
we've tried it, we've succeeded with it. And I feel like it's just so it allows I think everything to just be so on brand, because the model has always been we're not teaching something that essentially worked 10 or 15 years ago, right? Like, in 2003, I was going out door to door, and this is what I said to Miss Mary. She's dead now. That's what a lot of organizations that train, that do, that are FMOs. I'm not talking about anybody in
Combined.
particular, but
Whoops.
except for them. But no, like I think that's very common, and it's very cookie cutter, generic, not specific, not easy to utilize information. It's not relevant information. Whereas we're teaching something that we did last week in the
Yep.
office, right? And I think that allows not that the leads ever were not great quality, right? Me as a customer, I was a customer for so many years, not just because not just because Glenn was my friend and I like talking to Glenn, but because the leads are good quality, right? And we got a good ROI on them as an agency and an organization. One thing I've never done is I've never flushed money. I wouldn't
Right.
keep ordering if they didn't work.
Yeah.
Right.
As much as Christian likes me, I don't think he would keep spending money.
Yeah. Right. And so, like that to me is such a relevant point as well. I almost feel like I think you can learn more from an organization that is also has another side of their business that's doing it every day than you can from one that never has done it or has done it like 20 years ago.
Yeah. The antiquated, again, the business model of agencies taking something that worked in the 90s and 80s and 90s and just kind of spraying that out to anybody who will listen to them. It's still going on today. I feel like it was a lot worse maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but it's still happening today. So I think having, again, all sides of it, we're seeing all sides of it, and being able to, hopefully distill it in a simple to learn format. Christian and I have a ton of ambitious goals this year on the content side. Again, when we're talking about supporting the community content, we're talking about free content that we want to give away to you guys. Yeah, 100% free content. We don't care, who you're contracted with or who you associate with. This is just, senior insurance sales content to try to help you guys earn more commissions and hopefully help more beneficiaries and more seniors into, products and plans that they really need. So, that's a really important goal, I think, to not just myself personally, but Christian too.
There was a question asked on the original announcement that I think would be a good idea for us to kind of address. I think it's a valid question, for
Absolutely.
sure. I disagree with the line of thought. I think I made that clear, but it's a fair question for sure. And I think that is, basically what the comment more or less was kind of getting at was, anytime I've seen an FMO also distribute leads internally, it turns messy, it gets kind of corrupted,
Sure.
et cetera, basically, right?
Right.
Um, what are your thoughts about that to anybody that might have that concern? Because I'm not I'm not disputing that that has happened
Right.
with certain organizations for sure.
For
Um,
sure.
I have my own
For sure.
thoughts about it, but I wanna get
Yeah.
your 2 cents as well
Well,
first.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind when I saw that comment was like, that's exactly why I started Lead Heroes in the first place. The company that I was originally contracted with, I was getting you know, misrepresented or just really lied to about where the leads were coming from. Were these new leads? Were these old leads? Were these being sold to other agents? Were these exclusive to me? I mean, you name it. I really was being kept in the dark or lied to. So when it comes to the validity of this concern, it's a very real concern because I myself have gone through it personally. And when your lead flow or your marketing is being cut off or it's being messed with, I mean, you're essentially taking commissions or you're taking money away from an agent. So it's a very disturbing thing when that happens. I immediately, once I got to the end of my rope with this agency I was working at, again, 10 years ago, I immediately severed ties. And ultimately, that's what led to the creation of Lead Heroes. So I understand this whole issue very well. I think what separates us from these other FMOs that go down that road is we have revenue streams on many different sides of the business. We don't have to manipulate the leads to make money. We're already making money on the leads without manipulating them because
Yep.
that's how, as of 2 weeks ago, everything was separate. So it's not something that has to have. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning too, if the FCC gets their way, they're essentially trying to outlaw shared leads. If you really think about it, how this gets implemented and whether there will be a loophole or not that agencies or individuals get to exploit, that's yet to be known. Based on the letter of the law, they're essentially trying to kill the shared lead. And so the model that we have now, we're already monetizing the leads without having to, do something shady or resell or cherry pick the leads for our internal agents. So we don't have to do that, but we're also building towards a future where shared leads don't exist.
Mhm.
For all we know, starting in 2025, the agent's name has to be listed on the opt-in, and then that agent has to be the one that facilitates the sale. We don't really know yet. There's a lot of speculation, like I talked about earlier, but there's no point in trying to, really attack an antiquated business model. If Christian and I are here to grow towards the future and to create
Yeah.
something that's really going to be everlasting, right? We want something that's going to work this year, that'll work next year, and it'll work the year after that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts,
Yeah,
Christian.
agreed. I very well said. My first thought process is I think, and what I replied back to this comment, and I'll kind of reiterate it, but maybe in a different way, but um, was I think I think there's going to be good and bad people in any business model,
Sure,
right? So like
for sure.
the first thing I thought about when I saw that was like, you know who else has internal leads for their agents? Integrity Marketing Group. They're doing all right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have this thing called Lead Center. They have 500,000 contracted agents. You know what I mean? Like,
And
so
they're all running business on a daily basis. Every single one of them.
every single one of them. But like, sure, there have been organizations out there that have been shady, haven't done things necessarily the right way. I think it has more to do with the quality of the character, the character of the people running the shop more than anything else. And I think both of our organizations prior to this merger have been 100% based on doing good business, transparency, giving more than we ask for, I feel like just because the businesses are coming together doesn't mean any of that is ever going to change. You know what I mean? Like
Correct.
we always want we always want to do good business. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
so I just think it's very generalizing and kind of just like being like, oh, if you have this business model, you're automatically in this camp. And I don't agree with that. I don't think all call centers are bad. I think there's bad call centers that do a lot of damage, and I think there's really good, well-ran call centers. And there's several people that we both know that fall into that camp. And so I don't like lumping all together. I just don't think
So
it's fair. And yeah. So that's
let me I want to touch on something you said there because it came up today. I'm on a phone call and I was talking to this agency owner about a bad business interaction that I personally had in the past month. Without getting into the specifics, I made a big purchase and they look like two super villains. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Hopefully I've got Captain America right behind me, dude. I can't be a supervillain with Captain America standing behind me. But so I'm talking to this agency owner about a transaction that I recently did within the last month, where it was a fairly big transaction, and the following day or 2 days maybe after I made that transaction, they dropped the price significantly, and then came back to me to try to get me to purchase more of what I had purchased. And while it's not like they did anything illegal or shady necessarily, the word choice that I used and that the agency owner confirmed with me on the phone today was that it's just bad business.
Yeah.
It's just bad business to do something like that. And when it comes to, a relationship business, a reputation business, which is very much so what the insurance industry is, that is so important. I know that's always been at the core of Lead Heroes, is making sure that, our reputation is sterling silver, perfect, nothing that would stop someone from wanting to work with us. And I know at CBIS, Christian's really been running the business the same way. Again, the reason why everything seemed to kind of fit the way it has so far.
Yeah. I think it's a big reason why, the two of us had the desire to work together. I think there's a lot of aligning principles and beliefs, in terms of kind of what is good business versus what's not good business. I think we align in that regard, and
Yes.
so I think that has a lot to do with it too. Like, I think either one of us could probably find a ton of different organizations to do this kind of deal with us. Like, I think both of our businesses were fairly desirable, for lack of a better word. And, we wanted to work together because we knew that there wouldn't be anyone coming in and kind of, tarnishing the reputation that either one of us has built. That's not what we're looking to do whatsoever. We're trying to be able to support agents in a better way. And I feel like we're able to do that now more than we were a month ago.
I do feel like we've encapsulated what we've been trying, what our goal and vision. I feel like we've done a really good job so far of explaining ourselves. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but that's been my interpretation of how the conversation has gone. So hopefully, if you weren't sure what this meant or how this looked, and if you've been watching, maybe not the whole stream, but you've at least seen a good chunk of it, hopefully you're, enlightened, or you understand
Team replay.
why we did
Hashtag
this.
team replay.
Yeah. Hashtag team replay. If you're coming in late, please watch the whole thing. Drop a question or a comment or a concern in this under this video. We'll get back to you. I promise. Again, our goal here is to help you guys understand how this is going to affect either yourself personally, or maybe just, again, down the road, how this could affect the industry as a whole. Because that's our goal, is to really make the entire industry a better place. Whether it's teaming up to fight CMS, against these rules and regulations, or finding out how, with the FCC rules, how you guys can still purchase paid marketing. That's what our goal is to really help you guys out.
In addition to everything Glenn said, comment your questions down below. But if there is anything we can do to kind of help you guys out in your business, drop them in the comments as well, or feel free to reach out. My inbox exploded today, I'm sure, and Glenn's did too. I know, and so a lot of questions, but also, people just reaching out, wanting to find out ways we can work together. We want to work with you. We want to be a part of your growth in some way. And there's a lot of different ways that can happen. So, yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you did, again, hashtag Team Replay. If you watched all the way to the end, comment on the video, and we'll be back with more content as we go. Later, guys.
A lot more. Thanks, you guys.